Welcome, seekers of the shadows, to Temptation of Darkness. I'm your guide, Evan Graves. Tonight, we're not just peering into the void, we're taking a trip back to a time when summer nights felt endless, and the biggest worry was homework or scraping your knee. But some town holds secrets older than their oldest trees, secrets that fester. And sometimes those secrets decide it's time to play. Settle in, turn down the lights, because we're going to Harmony Creek, Indiana, the summer of '93, a summer that started with sunshine and ended, well, you'll hear. You know how memory works, right? It's a funny thing. Some days are just blurs, a smudge on the calendar. But other days, other moments, they're burned in, seared onto your brain like a cattle brand. The summer of 1993 in Harmony Creek, Indiana. That's a whole season of brands for me, and for Liv, and Danny, and Chloe. We were the Creek Kids, they called us, though not always kindly. Just a bunch of preteens on bikes, fueled by cheap soda, and the kind of reckless boredom only a long, hot Midwest summer can breed. Harmony Creek. Sounds idyllic, doesn't it? Like something out of a Norman Rockwell painting. And on the surface it was. Manicured lawns, Friday night football in the fall, the annual Founders Day picnic at Miller's Grove. But underneath, there was a current, something stale and watchful. We felt it even then, though we didn't have the words for it. It was in the way the shadows clung a little too long to the corners of old buildings, the way the woods at the edge of town seemed to swallow sound. It started for us with the objects. Not just misplaced things that happens. This was deliberate, impossible. Liv Olivia Henderson back then was meticulously organized. Her prized collection of polished agates, kept in a velvet-lined box, appeared one morning arranged in a perfect, unsettling spiral on her bedroom floor. No one had been in her room. Daniel Park, our quiet, observant artist, found one of his charcoal sketches, a perfectly innocent drawing of the town square fountain, taped to the inside of his locked locker at school, but the figures in the drawing were distorted, their smiles too wide, their eyes just dark smudges. Chloe Miller, the newcomer whose family had just bought the old Weatherby place down by the Blackwood Ravine, a house that already had a reputation for being unsettled, she was the first to hear the voices. Whispers, she said, like dry leaves skittering across concrete, calling her name when no one was there. Sometimes she'd catch a scent too, overly sweet, like rotting flowers mixed with damp earth. I was the one who always had a story, a half-baked theory. My thing was the air. Sometimes in perfectly still rooms, or out in the open on a windless day, I'd feel a cold spot. Not just a draft, a pocket of air so frigid it would raise goosebumps, and for a second, the sounds around me would muffle, like being underwater. And sometimes in that muffled quiet, I'd hear a single, soft chuckle. We didn't talk about it at first. Kids don't. You think you're imagining it. You think you're going crazy. But then came the balloons. Not party balloons. These were off, pale anemic colors, dusty rose, faded gray, a sickly kind of yellow. They'd appear in the strangest places, one tied to the rusty condemned water tower overlooking the town, another snagged in the branches of the ancient oak in the Pioneer Cemetery. One even floated silently down the main aisle of the Grand Majestic Cinema during a matinee of Jurassic Park, causing a few nervous titters before an usher shooed it away. They were always just there, watching, marking something. It was Danny who first voiced the connection. He was sketching by the Blackwood Ravine, a place our parents universally forbade us from visiting. Not just because of the steep drops and unstable ground, but because the abandoned Blackwood textile mill sat there, a decaying monument to a bygone era, and everyone knew it was wrong. He came back that day, sketchbook clutched tight, face the color of old parchment. "It was looking at me," he stammered later when we were all huddled in my treehouse, the one sanctuary that still felt safe. "From the mill, one of the broken windows." "What was?" Liv asked, ever the pragmatist, though even her voice was a little shaky. Danny opened his sketchbook. He'd drawn it, or tried to. It wasn't a person, more a suggestion of a shape, tall, impossibly thin, with arms too long, and where the face should have been, just a smudge. But from that smudge, he'd drawn a single pale balloon on a string, as if the figure was holding it. That's when Chloe told us about the figure she'd see sometimes, reflected in her dark TV screen late at night after her parents were asleep. A gaunt woman with tangled hair like Spanish moss, who never moved, just stood there, sometimes with one of those pale balloons drifting near her. Liv, bless her rational heart, tried to find explanations. Weather patterns for the cold spots, pranksters for the balloons, mass hysteria for the rest. But then her dad's antique ship in a bottle, the one that sat on the mantelpiece for 20 years, untouched, was found one morning with the tiny ship broken, its mast snapped, its sails shredded, and a miniature, perfectly formed gray balloon tied to its bowsprit. The bottle was still sealed. We knew then, this wasn't random, it was focused, it was us. The entity, because that's what we started to call it in our hushed whispers, seemed to understand our private dreads. Liv was terrified of imperfection, of chaos. It would subtly alter things in her meticulously ordered world. Books out of alphabetical order, pencils arranged by length instead of color. Small things designed to fray her nerves. Danny feared being unseen, ignored. The entity would make his artwork disappear, only to reappear days later, subtly, horribly changed. Chloe's fear was abandonment, being alone. The whispers would intensify when she would by herself, sometimes taking on the tones of her parents, murmuring disappointments. For me, it was the town's history. I loved it, but it also gave me a deep unease. The old stories of settlers vanishing, of the fever years when half the children in Harmony Creek were lost to an unnamed sickness. The entity would play on that. I'd find old, faded photographs tucked into my school books, pictures of Harmony Creek from 100 years ago, but with shadowy figures in the background that hadn't been there before, figures holding those damn balloons. The local library became our research hub. Old newspapers, town archives. We were looking for a pattern, anything. And we found it. Every 27 years, Harmony Creek experienced a spike, not just in unusual occurrences, as the old records politely termed them, but in disappearances, often children or those who were vulnerable. The last spike, 1966. Before that, 1939. The math wasn't hard, we were due. The Blackwood textile mill, it was the epicenter. Built in the late 1800s, it had a grim history. Accidents, fires. The owner, Josiah Blackwood, was a recluse who, legend had it, dabbled in things best left undabbled. The mill had been closed since the 50s, a condemned eyesore, but it pulsed with something. We could all feel it when we got too close, a cold, predatory hunger. The climax, if you can call it that, came during the annual Founders Day Bake-Off. The whole town was gathered in the park. Mayor Thompson was giving his usual long-winded speech. And then we saw it. Not one of its forms, but its influence. Little Patty Jenkins, who was maybe 6, wandered away from the cotton candy stand, chasing a bright, cherry-red balloon that had mysteriously appeared, bobbing enticingly toward the tree line that bordered the Blackwood Ravine. We saw it. We knew. Patty's mom screamed her name. A few adults started to move, but we were already sprinting. We were kids. We were faster. We knew the shortcuts. We found Patty at the very edge of the ravine, eyes wide, staring at the red balloon which was now hovering just over the crumbling precipice. And standing beside the balloon, almost shimmering in the dappled sunlight, was a figure. It looked like a clown, but not a funny one. Its smile was painted on, but it stretched too far. Its eyes were just dark pits, and in one white-gloved hand, it held the string of the red balloon. In the other, it held another, a pale gray one. It was beckoning Patty forward. "Hey!" I yelled, my voice cracking. The clown thing turned its head, a slow, deliberate movement. The painted smile didn't change, but the darkness in its eyes seemed to deepen, to focus on us. It was Liv who acted. She had a can of her mom's Super Hold hairspray in her backpack. Don't ask. She also had a lighter she'd confiscated from an older kid, a makeshift flamethrower. She sprayed. She flicked. A whoosh of flame erupted, not quite reaching the clown, but close enough. The thing, it didn't scream. It hissed, a sound like air escaping a punctured lung, and it recoiled, stepping back from the edge. The red balloon popped with a wet, sick sound. Patty snapped out of her trance and started crying. Danny grabbed her. Chloe was already pulling her back. The clown thing faded like smoke, leaving behind only the smell of burnt sugar and something else. Something like old pennies and grave dirt. And that single gray balloon, which slowly deflated, sinking to the ground. We got Patty back to her mom. We mumbled something about a stray dog. No one questioned it too much. They were just glad she was safe. But we knew. We'd seen it. We'd confronted it in our own clumsy way. After that, things in Harmony Creek quieted down. The strange occurrences lessened. The balloons were seen less and less. It was like the entity had retreated, sated, or perhaps just biding its time. We didn't defeat it. We just maybe pushed it back into remission, made it understand that some of its prey could bite back. We grew up. College, jobs, lives. We moved away one by one. Liv became an engineer, all logic and precision. Danny, a graphic designer, still seeing the world in lines and shadows, but channeling it into art. Chloe, a therapist, helping others navigate their own darkness. And me, I became a writer, trying to make sense of the stories in my head. We rarely spoke of that summer. It was like a shared, unspoken pact, a trauma best left undisturbed. Until last month. Liv called me. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the undertone, the same one it had back in '93. "Mikey," she said, and she hadn't called me Mikey in 25 years. They're seeing them again in Harmony Creek. "Seeing what, Liv?" I asked, though a cold knot was already forming in my stomach. "The balloons," she said. "Pale ones. And a kid, a teenager. New family in town, apparently. He went missing near the old Blackwood Mill property 2 days ago. 27 years, almost to the day, the cycle. It's back, or it never truly left, and it remembers us. Oh, I'm sure it remembers the Creek kids, the ones who saw its face, the ones who threw a little fire in its eyes. Harmony Creek is calling us home, and this time, we're not kids anymore. But then again, neither is it. It's had a long time to fester, a long time to wait, and I have a sinking feeling that what it has planned for us, for the town, it's going to make the summer of '93 look like a pleasant dream. It seems the darkness in Harmony Creek has a long memory, and its hunger is patient. What happens when the nightmares of your youth refuse to stay buried, when they reach out across the decades? We'll be following Michael and the others as they confront what awaits them back in their hometown. Make sure you're subscribed to Temptation of Darkness, because the story of Harmony Creek is only just beginning to unfold. And trust me, you won't want to face this one alone. Until next time, keep questioning what lurks just beyond the light.